This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I am one of the hosts of this show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X at Michael5Ritter, on Instagram at MichaelRitter5, and also the host of the Football Function Podcast, available on all your podcasting platforms wherever you're listening to this show, and including on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free experience. Somebody who prefers an ad-free experience on all of the podcasts he listens to, including the WWE Podcast, is Frankie Graham, and he's someone who is on the SmackDown tier of the patron subscribers for the WWE Podcast, but he's also a patron subscriber for the Football Function Podcast. So we definitely had to bring him on. He's someone who is a pretty long-time wrestling fan, and I was very interested to get his thoughts and his opinions on everything that's going on with the product right now. He did watch SmackDown, so he's very up to speed on everything that's going on with the WWE product. So Frankie, thank you so much for joining me here on this Saturday morning, and I'm looking forward to talking about SmackDown with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited.
Yeah, this was a pretty eventful episode of SmackDown. Anytime you get The Rock, anytime you get Roman Reigns, I mean, whenever they're not there, people definitely like to point it out, and they like to, no pun intended, acknowledge the fact that they're not making an appearance whenever they should. It's in the nitty gritty. We're here in crunch time, getting towards WrestleMania season. So you would expect that your WrestleMania main event program would be just weekly TV programming. You'd just see them on your TV every single week. So the fact that we point it out whenever they're not there, I feel like it's only right that we point out whenever they are there. And they closed the show with, a well over 10-minute segment where, we got Roman Reigns, we got The Rock, the rest of the members of the Bloodline. We'll get to all that as we get through this episode of SmackDown. I kind of took notes in chronological order. That's how I like to do it sometimes. So we'll probably do that exact same thing just to kind of roll through the show here and make sure we do not miss anything. But this episode of SmackDown aired on February 16th, 2024 from Salt Lake City, Utah, in the arena that the Salt Lake City, Utah Jazz play. So yeah, the Jazz, who aren't necessarily doing too hot this season, they allowed their stadium to be used by, the WWE. And that's always a nice thing for these professional organizations and all these leagues to do, is to share it with, a place that's going to sell it out. And, obviously they kind of highlighted it a little bit later in the show that it was a record breaker in the state of Utah for an indoor crowd. I don't know the exact number, but I do know that the crowd at SmackDown last night in Salt Lake City was the largest indoor crowd in Utah indoor sports history. So definitely had to give a shout out there, because WWE is known to do things like that, and they just break records damn near every time they go to a stadium. But this episode of SmackDown had a lot of Elimination Chamber qualifying matches. It had a lot of, storyline development, mainly the main event, which we will get to, but there was no video package to start the show, no progressive match flow to kind of, get us all up to speed on what happened the previous week. They kind of just, bam, rolled it out. And obviously we saw The Rock. He kind of pulled up, and we saw him arrive to the arena himself. But in terms of actual juicy segments that happened on SmackDown, they started right out of the gate with a qualifying match for the Elimination Chamber. This one between Kevin Owens and Dom. KO comes out first, then Dom comes out with a microphone, and the crowd won't let him get a word out during his little pre-match promo, where he's pretty much just putting over the Judgment Day, talking about how obviously Priest and Finn Balor are going to successfully defend their championships. Rhea Ripley's going to successfully defend hers. And then he's proclaiming that he is going to win the Elimination Chamber, go on to WrestleMania, defeat Seth Rollins. Pretty much just live out the dream and make the Judgment Day have all the gold and be the most dominant faction in WWE right now, which you could argue that they're getting there already, even without all the gold. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. R-Truth comes out to get a little bit of a better view. He's watching this thing from ringside. Dom has a couple pretty big kickouts. There was a couple frog splashes. I thought that maybe he was going to get put away pretty early in this match, but he actually kicked out. I was actually kind of impressed from what he was doing. A couple botches here or there, but that's just part of it. These two guys, they're on different shows. They don't really wrestle each other very often. I do believe this is their first ever match together. So you're not going to see just chemistry oozing out of the ring, but Dom tries to tell R-Truth to get him a chair. He pretty much says, hey, if you want to be part of Judgment Day, go get me a chair right now, which R-Truth goes and gets a chair, but he doesn't hand it to Dom. He actually just sets it up, sits on it right outside the ring, and that distracts Dominic just enough to allow Kevin Owens to hit a super kick, followed by a stunner to pick up the win and earn his spot inside the Elimination Chamber in Australia. And then R-Truth celebrates with Kevin Owens after the match. Now, I've kind of went on record saying that this is some of R-Truth's best work, just in my personal opinion. So I want to get your opinion. What do you think about this whole R-Truth Judgment Day, this whole dynamic that we've been seeing here for the past month or so?
So, R-Truth, I watched him, going from when he came to WWE to, now. And, him now has blown up so much, just his comedy, wrestling needs that comedy way more than they do, anything else. Cause, you gotta put people's smile on their faces, and he just pulls people in with that joking around and stuff like that. So him just messing with Judgment Day, it's throwing them off their game and making to where they can't concentrate on what they're striving for and, dominating and stuff like that, because they have to deal with, R-Truth that's joking with people being the good guy.
Yeah. Just the whole dynamic. It makes so much sense from a comedic standpoint to see a group like the Judgment Day, who obviously R-Truth does not fit in with them at all. And the fact that he's just so persistent trying to be in the group, which obviously that shit might have sailed just looking at kind of how things played out here today on SmackDown. But I have been enjoying it, as well as, JD McDonough and obviously Dominic kind of coming into his own, separating himself from his father's shadow, I guess, and, just making a new chapter in his career alongside this group. Keeping things going here backstage, we get a very intense face-off, a very intense exchange between Drew McIntyre and LA Knight. Drew McIntyre just gets a little bit of an opportunity to have a backstage interview. He's talking to Caleb Braxton. Out of nowhere, LA Knight comes up, and they're kind of going back and forth. LA Knight is actually reminding him how, for 2 years, well, first off, Drew McIntyre's telling him hey, I see right through you, I'm looking at all the jokes that you tell, all this arrogance, all this confidence. I see it, I see right through you. It's really just a sign of insecurity, is, for lack of a better word, what he was trying to say. And pretty much just saying look, as quick as the fans got behind you, they'll get against you and they'll turn on you just as fast. And he referenced his own resume. He was pretty much saying they'll do it to you who hasn't won pretty much anything. Look at me. My resume's stacked and they still turned on me. LA Knight takes advantage right there, says, well, hold on, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm glad you brought up your resume, because you haven't done jack what since I've been up here, since I've got called up to the main roster here in WWE. So yeah, I understand why the fans have turned on you, because your time has come, your time has passed, and you're going to get passed up again whenever I eliminate you from the Elimination Chamber. Just a nice little exchange here, but you could just tell the, animosity that was going on between these two guys. They don't really interact a whole lot. They're on different shows. So the fact that they're going to have a match next week because of this. It stemmed from this little interaction. But LA Knight pulls out that shirt, the Drew McIntyre shirt that has a picture of CM Punk's WrestleMania main event tombstone. He says there's room for one more name there. Great stuff from LA Knight. Did you catch this segment? Am I kind of overreacting to it, or do you think that this is something that could set up something between these two guys? Maybe even, it's hard to see this match going if none of them have gold going all the way to WrestleMania. But, even if it ends at Elimination Chamber, the fact that they're giving us something to be invested in. Just LA Knight, Drew McIntyre, two guys who obviously the fans both love. So, I don't know. Am I overreacting to this, or was this, an A1 segment here backstage?
I thought it was an A1 segment, A1. And I think what they're planning, like they're giving us little teases and stuff like that, because that's how Tripp does. He throws little like pieces of cheese out to the mice for them to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I think what they're doing is setting something up for after WrestleMania. Because I feel like Drew is gonna beat Seth. And then after that, LA Knight is gonna have a match with Drew for the title and beat him.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see here. Continuing on, we get Tyler Bate. He suggests that he and Pete Dunne, they need a new name. They need to get a new name for their tag team. And Dominic Mysterio, who's walking up, he kind of chimes in a little bit and says that those two guys can't be any two members of the Judgment Day. And they kind of poke fun at him, saying, well, how about this? Next week it's you and R-Truth versus us, where they obviously, or Dominic says, R-Truth isn't in the Judgment Day. Come on, you guys should know that by now. So we're clearly going to see more of Judgment Day versus Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. I can't remember, because obviously I just watched SmackDown not that long ago, what their group name was. It was like the new something, the Charge. I don't know exactly. So don't come at me, listeners. Obviously, it's very, very fresh. We're going to find out what these guys are called very, very soon. But that's just something that I kind of took note, because, you know, teams need a name, especially if you're kind of clicking. These two guys are the number one contenders. They're going to go at the Judgment Day, Priest and Finn Balor, to get an opportunity at those tag team championships. So we might as well find a name for these guys. But, let's see. Moving on here, there's another Elimination Chamber qualifying match. This one is for the Women's Chamber match. Zelina Vega versus Tiffany Stratton. Go ahead.
I think their name should be something like the Strongest Bend. You know, because you have Pete Dunne.
Yes.
He's always bending people's fingers and stuff like that. And then you have the Strong Boy. So you kind of put both of them together, and that's what they should be.
I wish I knew, because I agree. That makes total sense, what you just said there. But they already said what the name was, and it's New Catch Republic. That's what it is. See, I knew that it was something like that. Yeah, New Catch Republic. I just had to look it up. Google is your friend, just so you know, if you're ever in a little bit of a pickle here, and, you know, you talking obviously gave me the time to look it up. But yeah, so definitely. New Catch Republic. That's what we can call this team going forward. They're going to get an opportunity to go at the Judgment Day here. But that match taking place at Elimination Chamber. Speaking of Elimination Chamber, we do get this women's qualifying match here, Zelina Vega versus Tiffany Stratton. And this was a pretty good match. I will say, I kind of thought, you know, a new NXT call-up, Zelina Vega, who's kind of been floating there around the bottom of the women's division for such a long time. Does this match really have anything to get invested? Obviously, you want to know who's going to win. It's pretty obvious who is going to win just before the match. Like, are they going to really not have this new shiny toy get elevated and inserted into this match? I had my doubts about that, but I really did get invested whenever there was a really well-executed moonsault from Zelina Vega outside the ring. It was just jumping onto the second rope. Obviously, Tiffany Stratton standing there on the outside of the ring. Just beautifully done. Obviously, Tiffany Stratton has her own moonsault that she does in this match. It's one of her signature and finisher moves. So she knows all about it, and these two probably worked together just a little bit to make sure that the timing was right. But it was a very well executed moonsault by Vega, and that's whenever she really started to get control of this match. And then the camera shows Legado del Fantasma sitting at ringside, and so naturally the LWO come out, try to make sure that they don't cost Vega her opportunity. The match spills over to the commentary area where Elektra Lopez has a run-in with Zelina Vega, and by the time she gets back in the ring, Tiffany Stratton capitalized by hitting the prettiest moonsault ever and earning her spot inside the chamber. I think Stratton definitely earned this one. Her gimmick, her persona is obviously one of someone who's very arrogant, very rub it in your face. I'm way better than you. We see that a little bit later in the show whenever she, has a run in with Bianca and Liv Morgan. But nonetheless, I think the right person won this match. The match over-delivered from what I expected. Obviously, I expected Stratton to get the win, but I do believe that Zelina Vega did have a nice performance in this match. And obviously, we got some more development when you look at Legado del Fantasma, LWO. These two factions just on a collision course here. And they did ultimately cost Vega the match, so we're going to get a little bit more of this. But what'd you think about Stratton earning her spot in the chamber?
I was really impressed. I mean, I've watched her when she was part of NXT and all that, but I was more impressed on what the move that it was right before the prettiest moonsault was when she did that powerbomb.
Yes.
I was like, wow.
It really just showed the power, because there's not a whole lot of wrestlers that are like Tiffany Stratton. When you look at, obviously they have the looks, but they also have the strength and the pure wrestling ability. And she's someone obviously dating Ludwig Kaiser. They work together a lot. They work out together a lot. They are like one of those gym couples. So she's got that raw strength, and that's really what she puts on display time and time again whenever she gets in the ring. And you're right. I'm glad you highlighted that, because that is what set up the prettiest moonsault. And it really, even the commentator was like, man, the power displayed there from Tiffany Stratton is definitely something to take note of. Another thing to take note of, AJ Styles confronted by the OC backstage. And this one is a little bit interesting because he gets in a shoving match with Carl Anderson, smacks him in the face. What'd you think about this whole thing?
I was pretty, I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. And on the backstage when Tiffany Stratton was talking to Bianca, Liv Morgan, and then Jade, I was thinking, oh, that what if Bianca and Jade team up together? That would be a good tag team.
Oh, no doubt. They'd be borderline unstoppable.
Yeah.
But as far as AJ Styles and his little shoving match with Carl Anderson, I feel like this kind of puts AJ Styles in a unique spot, because he, what does he have going on for him right now? He just turned heel. He just came back. He looks like $1 million. He looks like he's in great shape, but he lost to Drew McIntyre in their contender, or not Drew Mc. Wait, was it Drew McIntyre? It was, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to think who he lost to for the spot in that Elimination Chamber match. So the fact that AJ Styles is, right now he doesn't have a challenger in his future. He doesn't necessarily have a clear path to a championship. He can't just continue to go after the Bloodline. I mean, he's already lost pretty much time and time again. So it's a little bit of a, he's at a catch-22 here, and he's at a crossroads. So I think that it makes the most sense to maximize this opportunity that you have here, which is Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Michin, just the OC, pretty much wondering why they're being pushed away so hard by AJ Styles, which inevitably could lead to a one-on-one match between him and Carl, possibly at WrestleMania, because they do have 2 days worth of cards to fill up.
Yeah, and I feel like with that whole match, the Good Brothers, they're still a babyface.
Yes.
And so AJ's turned heel, so he has to break away from that. That's what I feel. That's why he attacked him like he did.
Yeah, there's something brewing there, and you could definitely look forward to seeing more of that as we kind of continue to get closer to Elimination Chamber, because even if they don't put it on Mania, excuse me, I could definitely see them having this stretch all the way to Elimination Chamber, and maybe have them settle it there, because it's so soon. Elimination Chamber literally a week from today. I think that they're going to have to do what they can to maybe stretch this a little bit more. But AJ Styles versus Carl Anderson on the WrestleMania card is one of the earlier matches in the show. And just a format of like a grudge match. No title involved, nothing like that. Just two guys who do not like each other, who have a reason to go at each other. I think that makes all the sense in the world. We have a squash match here, though, coming up. We have Authors of Pain up against Bo Morris and Javier Bernal, I believe is how you pronounce it. I apologize if I misspoke there, but this is the squashiest of squash matches. There was absolutely no offense on the other side from this, obviously the underman team. The Authors of Pain, who had the entire Final Testament in their corner. I mean, this thing was like 45 seconds, literally less than a minute. The other guys had no offense. They had no type of control in this match. Your typical squash, but it made Authors of Pain look very, very strong. And I will say, I wrote down here in my notes, the potential that this group has, they could be in store for a really big 2024. Just when you look at the boxes that they check, I talk about it all the time. Tag team, top guy, eye candy, and just that veteran coach that is Paul Ellering. So the fact that, the Final Testament has all the pieces on paper, look like such a good group, it's almost like a layup for them. Like they should, without a doubt, go on a nice run here. It's all about Triple H and, the creative team putting them in the right spot. But from the outside looking in, like just the aesthetic part, even if you're like an AEW fan and you didn't watch WWE, just seeing that faction on TV, you're like, it turned some heads for sure.
Yeah, with AOP, I saw them when they first came a few years ago, and they were dominant, and then they just up and left, and I always wondered where they went, and then they came back, and they're stronger now than they were, and like this match, they took out the one guy, and then they took out the other, and they wouldn't they put both of them in the ring, just demolished both of them, or less.
Yeah, it was an absolute squash match. But continuing on here in the SmackDown review, we have Logan Paul, who he has a match, but before his match, he pitches that there's a chance that he's going to be WWE's double champ because he wants to earn his spot. He's the current U.S. champ. He's already got one of the belts. But he's in the running to earn a spot in the Elimination Chamber to possibly be in that match, win it, and then go on and beat Seth Rollins at WrestleMania? Now that would be a very unique situation.
My question, now don't get me wrong, but he said that he's going to be the very first double champion?
I don't think he said first. I just think he said that he would be WWE's double champ, just meaning like, cause obviously it happens in the UFC and it happens in boxing. So that's probably what he's referencing. But I was listening closely because you gotta be careful because obviously he's definitely not the first double champ. There's been so many others before him. Seth Rollins, one that, just comes to mind immediately, even before they were unified. Roman Reigns had the WWE championship and the Universal just whenever he first beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 38. So
and then you have Becky Lynch.
Yeah, Becky Lynch, exactly. Yep. So it's happened multiple times. So he would just be simply misspeaking if he actually did say that. But speaking of WrestleMania 38, Logan Paul and The Miz were teammates going up against the Mysterios for WrestleMania 38. The Miz obviously turned on Logan Paul after that match, but nonetheless, they're going one-on-one here for a Elimination Chamber qualifying match. And Logan Paul pretty much he does everything he can to cheat. He's the absolute heel in this situation. He scrapes the eyes of the Miz whenever the ref was looking away, and then he hits the Miz with a skull crushing finale. But the Miz kicked out, puts Logan in the figure 4 leg lock. Obviously he breaks out, eventually gets a rope break. And then Logan leaves the ring. He gets an assist in the form of brass knuckles by a friend of his sitting ringside. And then he steals the win along with a spot in the Elimination Chamber match. Not a fan of Logan Paul having to do these heel tactics, but it is what it is. He's someone that's absolutely talented enough to get the win on his own. So the fact that he's constantly looking for an upper hand here, not a great look for the guy. But hey, it is what it is. It's pro wrestling. He is a heel, so you gotta do what you gotta do. But as someone who, I guess, takes what Logan Paul says somewhat serious, because he is someone that, as much of a professional wrestler as he is, he does blur that line from time to time where you're wondering, like, is this scripted what this guy's saying, or is it a little bit real? We don't really know. He definitely kind of pulls from the hip more than maybe your average wrestler. But yeah, nonetheless, you gotta just accept it. It's who he is at this point. As long as he's a heel, he's going to use those heel tactics. And he's going to be using brass knuckles and pretty much just using every type of advantage that he possibly can. I mean, I saw The Undertaker do this whenever he was the heel version of American Badass. Go look at how many matches The Undertaker had to cheat to win, and you'll be like, it's just part of the business. But yeah, Logan Paul earns his spot in the Elimination Chamber. What'd you think about that?
I thought that was I thought it was really good. There were some parts where I was skeptical on, but overall, I think the right person won because, you got to have a heel during this Elimination Chamber.
Yes. Yeah, no doubt. And you're right. The right person absolutely won. If you just put Logan Paul on the card and you just look at the Elimination Chamber graphic with all 6 participants, it looks better with Logan Paul than it does with The Miz. And that's just fact. I really think that, obviously people can disagree with that, but Logan Paul's got more to offer without a doubt, but
And also, if you put the Miz on there, you won't get as much outside WWE people coming to see it. Now, if you put Logan on there, you look at what he's done on YouTube.
yeah,
He's an icon on the YouTube skit. So putting him there, there's going to be so much more people coming to the show or watching the show to see it.
exactly. Yeah, Logan Paul brings in outside eyeballs, people who don't typically watch the product, and now he has his own fan base. So there's WWE fans who probably like Logan Paul and they just want to see him on the card. But something you mentioned a little bit earlier was Tiffany Stratton barging into Nick Alta's office. And, it was very arrogant. She was talking smack to Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, while Nick Aldis was negotiating with Braun Breaker and Jade Cargill. And you see Jade, she kind of says, hold up, this is not going on right now during my big moment. Like, you guys aren't about to take this over and have a little bit of a petty fight. And clearly, it kind of simmers down there. And that's whenever Nick Aldis leaves, he takes them, both of them with him. But that's whenever you kind of got the idea, Jade and Bianca look like they could be a damn good dominant, 2-woman power trip. Just them two up against everybody. Good luck stopping them. But I think that even in this segment, it really showed more so who Tiffany Stratton is and who we can expect to see her going forward. And, she's just, that bratty heel has a little bit of Alexa Bliss whenever, like 2016, 2017 Alexa Bliss in her game, whenever you look at just that spoiled brat type of persona, while still just being an absolute powerhouse, as we saw inside the ring. Like I said, checks all the boxes. She's going to have a bright future here in the WWE.
Or even, the bad version of, what is her name? She's part of, Raw. Chelsea Green.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit more of a powerful, a little more talented in the ring Chelsea Green, but Chelsea Green as a mouthpiece, absolutely. Like, if Doudrop was more of a credible, force, if Doudrop had more of a Nia Jax type of vibe to her, I think that team right there could be a lot more formidable. That's just kind of my opinion there. But moving on, the last Elimination Chamber qualifying match of the night, we have Alba Fire versus Naomi. The only reason why Alba Fire was in this match is because she replaced an injured Shotzi Blackheart who could not get medically cleared to compete in this match. So Alba Fire steps in. They have a pretty phenomenal match, although I will say Isla Dawn, her tag team partner, was there at ringside, just constantly being a thorn in Naomi's side. The fact that Naomi actually prevailed, overcame the odds, and won this match, credit to her, because, it was pretty much a 2-on-1 handicap match. She gets it done. Naomi returns to WWE, pretty much shot out of a rocket, having a nice run in the Royal Rumble, and obviously earning a spot in the Elimination Chamber. What do you think about Naomi's return? Do you think she has a shot in this chamber?
Honestly, I think she does, because she's going to be the underdog of this whole kit caboodle.
And she's
but I don't think
a Bloodline member. If you look at her, she was on that family tree. So imagine her winning the title in a world that Roman retains. All of a sudden, it's looking like, holy hell, we're entering a new chapter in the Bloodline.
But also, they have Becky Lynch who's supposed to, win it. But she needs to change her whole gimmick, and I already have a solution, but she needs to change her whole gimmick for Becky to move on.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And Becky Lynch's new gimmick, I think she should go back to being the Irish ass kicker.
Yeah. She could. I mean, she very well could. I feel like with how she's marketing The Man, she literally has a book coming out pretty much titled The Man and not your average woman, whatever. I think that with how The Man is kind of taken off, she'll probably try to squeeze every last ounce of juice out of that. But yeah, I mean, the Irish ass kicker, there's so many different versions of Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, that we've seen over the years. It just is a credit to how long their careers have been. Like the fact that it's been damn near like a decade and they've been consistently on the top here in WWE. You have to tip your hat to them because it's not an easy sport to stay on top for a long time. And it's not an easy sport to have a long career. I mean, this is a very brutal lifestyle, a very gruesome way to, spend your day to day. traveling, staying at hotel rooms, eating unhealthy for the most part. Sometimes you probably got it taken care of unless you're like a really experienced veteran and then you kind of know the tricks of the trade. But for the most part, these are a bunch of young people learning, pretty much flying by the seat of their pants, learning by experience every day. They're kind of just going at this, and it's a different business now than it was back then. Obviously, things are just a lot more healthy from a just general standpoint. But nonetheless, being a professional wrestler for a long period of time is not an easy thing to do. So I always give credit to people like Becky, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Charlotte Flair, people that have been around for a long time now. Even though it might not seem like it, they might still seem like the quote unquote new names to the casual watchers who come in only to see Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, the NWO whenever they show back up. Whenever you can know, like, all right, we're witnessing legends have historical Hall of Fame careers right in front of our very eyes. And it's not like, oh, they started in the 80s. You saw a little bit of them in the 90s. And then they had the tail end of their career having retirement matches in the 2000s. Like, no. We saw these people start their careers, have them, and now they're kind of entering that latter stage. Like, look at Kevin Owens. He's such an experienced veteran at this point. Like, it's kind of off topic, but I was just kind of thinking, like, he's, probably getting towards the last run, the last handful of years of his career being this full-time, every single week talent. Because he's had a long career even before he got to WWE, but he's only been on like WWE television for like 10 years, and he seems like it's been so much longer, because we've seen so much of Kevin Owens.
Yeah, and it's same with like these two guys that I'm about to say. They've been around this business their whole entire life, and so they have witnessed the ups and downs and the traveling and stuff like that. You got Dominic Mysterio, and then you have Braun Breaker.
Yep.
Because Braun Breaker, he's the son of the Steiner, Rick Steiner.
Rick Steiner. Yep. So yeah, they've just been around it for literally raised in it. They were raised in this business, so they have just a whole different perspective. But anyways, getting back on track here. Dakota Kai backstage, she asked Bayley for help. I guess she saw some pretty sketchy things from Damage Control earlier in the show that makes her feel like she might be in some danger, but Bayley isn't just so quick to say, look, I'm going to forgive and forget. I don't know who I can trust right now, so I don't know if I can be just this companion for you. Things are going to get pretty interesting, but I wouldn't be shocked if, we see Dakota Kai laid out backstage in the coming weeks.
I think so too, but I also think that Bayley, since she's gone babyface, I think she has to cover her, cover her T's and dot her I's. Because, you have Damage Control attacking Bayley. It basically is what it is.
Yeah.
And you just have to, watch your back.
Yes, sir. And go ahead and moving on to another thing that happened right before we get to the juicy main event part of the show. Bron Breakker officially signs with SmackDown, which someone like me, for, the casual WWE fan who watches Raw, who watches SmackDown, has no horse in the race. They're probably like, oh, cool, just another segment. Now they know where they're going to be able to see him on a week-to-week basis. But for me, who's very much so invested in the SmackDown brand and has been for the better part of like over 3 years now, I love seeing these types of signings happen, having, Tiffany Stratton come up, Bron Breakker. If we can make Jade Cargill official, which I'm pretty sure it already is, like we already have Jade on the roster, that would be nice. And in a world where the brand split is actually enforced and they're, following their own rules and there's actually a structure to the way that WWE is formatted, then I believe that, SmackDown has a pretty good roster, and I'm actually really, really fond of the shape that it's in, just, from top to bottom. But, now we could talk about the juicy stuff. We could talk about Roman Reigns, The Rock coming out. I didn't really know what to expect, but Roman Reigns makes it very clear, like, this is going to be The Rock's first night, pretty much first night being introduced as a member of the Bloodline. So he wanted the crowd to pay some respects. That, yeah, they're going to get excited when The Rock says a catchphrase and when he does this, when he does that. But they didn't want, Roman Reigns didn't want the crowd to lose sight over what's at hand here. And that is a very historic moment in the Bloodline family just storyline here. And The Rock comes out. immediately, like I'm sure you've already seen it. There's like an 8-minute video of him absolutely demolishing the state of Utah, the city of Utah, or the Salt Lake City. I apologize. The state of Utah, the city of Salt Lake City, just absolutely going on a tangent, saying how they're just inbred, how he's going to smack the herpes off their lips. He even referenced them losing in the NBA Finals to Michael Jordan, which is pretty much like, as someone who has been there, done that, it's like bringing up losing to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. You know, it's just, there's so many different shots that The Rock can take at you, and he was taking at you. I mean, Bloodline, whether it was Roman Reigns, Jimmy, Solo, Paul Heyman, they were all just standing there like, oh man, he is just absolutely decimating this crowd right now. But the only thing, like, The Rock was cooking. Like, I was smelling what The Rock was cooking. But in that same breath, I will say he kind of stopped making sense when he was questioning why Cody Rhodes is in this spot. Now, whether you feel like it should be Rock versus Cody, or I'm sorry, Roman versus Cody, or Roman versus Rock, that has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. With what I'm about to say is, The Rock was making it seem like Cody Rhodes had no reason to be in the spot that he's in right now. He lost last year. He even brought up the 49ers. Like, ooh, they just lost the Super Bowl. Like, that would be like them telling the Chiefs, hey, let's have a rematch. Like, no, they took their loss like a man. They moved on. Is there a Royal Rumble in the NFL? No, there's not. And the thing about that is, The Rock was making it seem like Cody Rhodes did not win the Royal Rumble. Like, he was like, the world doesn't work like that. The world doesn't work like that, where if you lose your opportunity, you get a rematch. Like, just because you want one. He's not getting a rematch because he wants one. He's getting a rematch because he won the Royal Rumble. And if you're upset with the fact that he won the Royal Rumble, you got to take it up with Triple H, whoever made that decision, because I pitched long before the Rumble happened that The Rock should absolutely win it, because that's a way for him to rightfully, logically, and legally skip over Cody Rhodes, because he won the Rumble. He could choose who he wanted to go up against. But I will say I like what they're doing with it right now. The storyline is in a place where nobody really knows what to expect. Nobody knows what's coming. Everybody is kind of pointing out how The Rock and the way that the camera angles were worked at the end of SmackDown when he said, I'm going to make sure you lose. It looked like he was pointing at Roman Reigns. And then when he was holding up the one for the Bloodline, he was like holding up an L. I think that might be grasping for straws a little bit. Just like if you're absolutely like putting stock in that, you know, if you're saying, oh, The Rock was pointing at Roman Reigns, I think that they would have made it a little bit more obvious if that was some like a direction they were absolutely going. They could play on that a little bit later if they changed their mind and audible. But I just think that as great as The Rock's promo was, it got really kind of off the rails whenever he was making it seem like Cody didn't have a logical reason to be in this spot. And my only thought process was, somebody needs to tell The Rock that Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble, because apparently he doesn't know if he thinks that there's no reason. But what did you think about this whole segment?
I liked majority all of it. There was some parts of it that, you know, I was skeptical on, but overall, I understand what The Rock is trying to do. Like, for one, when he was down dismantling the Salt Lake City, Utah, but yet on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, he the next day he said, "Oh, thank you, Salt Lake, for having a sold out arena." Like, you're dissing them, but you're thanking them.
Yeah,
I don't understand what you're pulling off. So, but overall, I understand what The Rock's trying to do.
yeah,
You know, just throwing us a little bone every once in a while, kind of deal.
yeah. See, I get it. Like, just that. I feel like the reason why he brought up the attendance record and all that stuff first is to make the crowd think that he was like, they were about to get their moment. Like, oh, he's about to say, finally, The Rock has come back and it's going to be a great moment. I've been looking forward to this all week since I bought these tickets, only for him to, you know, pull the rug out and really make it more of an anti-Utah type of segment, which is what he does. And I appreciate that. Like, a lot of people think it's such a low-hanging fruit, just insult the local team, sports teams. But if you can do it in a creative way, like The Rock has done for decades at this point, Like if you can actually like take the shots at the city and make them creative, like the way that he did, actually referencing a real event that happened when, the Chicago Bulls beat the Utah Jazz in the NBA Finals. So there's multiple ways that you can do that. And I'm a sports guy. I always appreciate whenever that type of thing happens, but I definitely appreciated this SmackDown. I feel like it was a good one. There's going to be more juicy episodes of SmackDown coming as we get closer to Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. But before I let you go, Frankie, you mentioned something about a dream match question. So I'm going to give the floor to you and let you elaborate on that.
Okay, so I was thinking this the other day, like for the main event at WrestleMania 40, having a dream match. So I was thinking this, they would have Roman versus Cody, and then the Bloodline come out. All the Bloodline comes out. Then Cody has AJ Styles comes out to attack Solo, and then The Rock comes out and attacks Jey Uso comes out and attacks Jimmy, and then you have Stone Cold come out and then attack The Rock, control him, and then when Roman Reigns is about to spear Cody, you hear the Shield music, and here comes Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose down to the ring, and then Cody gets him with the Cody Cutter and finishes it. I think that would be epic.
That would be like storybook right there. Like that would be very like, you're bringing in so many different like parts of history. Obviously you mentioned, Jimmy and Jay. That's a branch. Like this is a tree of like this whole fantasy booking you just did, because that is like, you just look at the WrestleMania main event as the tree, and then you have all these branches, right? The Jimmy versus Jay aspect, the Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, having their history, and obviously the Shield being just such a big part of Roman Reigns' past, and then The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, who have main evented like 3 WrestleManias. Yeah, I feel like there would be a huge demographic that just would lose their mind as all the music kept hitting, as the people were coming out, and as the odds kept, evening out. People would be losing their what, but that just makes me think like, man, in the moment, whenever Roman Reigns is actually on the cusp of losing that championship, it's going to be very historic, and I'm not really sure when. I'm not really sure to who, and that's, a credit to WWE for keeping us going this long and still wondering when and who and, how was this going to happen. But either way, I'm excited because, we're going to be in store. Just to kind of piggyback on that, my dream main event for WrestleMania 40, just to kind of let you know, it would have been for The Rock to win the Royal Rumble, for him to come out at number 30 and just stay babyface. We didn't need to see this heel Rock. Now, obviously, I'm glad that we're getting it. It's just a completely different perspective and a point of view on this that, I didn't anticipate. But a babyface Rock coming back to, avenge Jey Uso and everyone else that's kind of fallen to Roman Reigns, and just be that final boss that Roman has to meet at WrestleMania 40 for the belt. And if you planned on have Roman Reigns retain, it would have made so much more sense to have him beat The Rock right then, WrestleMania 40, and then, just move on and let Cody finish his story another time or whatever. Because honestly, Cody had his chance to finish his story in WrestleMania 39 last year. Like that was the opportunity. Like that was when it was supposed to happen. I remember going on a show with the Casual Wrestling Fan and DJ Kuzmo and Kanye Twitty, and we were literally talking about it. And we were all talking about how the fact that, like, if not now, when? We asked that question. If Cody Rhodes isn't going to beat Roman Reigns, if not now, when? And I remember thinking like, like, I don't know. Like, if you're going to have him beat Cody Rhodes right now, then at this point, you might as well hold it on him for X amount of days, as long as you want, because it's going to be very hard to find someone that's worthy, find a story that makes sense. And as you can tell right now, just like from the fan reaction, you're not going to please everybody one way or the other. So you might as well just do what makes the most sense.
And also, Rock doesn't have that much time left to wrestle. He's getting up there where he can't wrestle no more. So let him finish off that story between him and Roman. And Cody's still young enough where he can go next year.
Damn. Yeah. No doubt.
And have his brother come down to the ring and be there when he wins it.
Yeah. Man. A lot of fantasy booking, a lot of good stuff that could happen as we get closer. And who knows, one of these stories might end up coming true. But Frank, thank you so much for joining. Obviously, you're more than welcome to come back anytime. I'm glad that time-wise it was able to work out this week. We're definitely going to get you back on a lot more. As a loyal patron to not only this show, but also the Football Function, I certainly appreciate that. So yeah, open invitation. Anytime you want, you can definitely hop on the SmackDown review. Football Function doesn't really matter. But do you have any shout outs, any plugs, anything like that before I let you go?
Not really. I mean, you can find me on TikTok, Frankly Wilder, on TikTok. I'm always on there. So, that's about it.
Yep. Go check out his TikTok. Things are going to get crazy on there from what I've heard. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on there. But yeah, once again, thank you so much, Frank. Going to get this bad boy sent to Matt so all of the WWE podcast family can enjoy it and get your perspective and, hear you on the show for the first time. So Frank, thank you so much for joining, bud. You have a damn good week.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks for listening to the WWE podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.